Welcome to Conversations That Awaken. This is a special series from A Course in Miracles that has inspired millions of readers around the world. Some see it as a spiritual masterpiece, others find it mysterious, challenging, or even controversial. Whatever brings you here, we invite you to leave your beliefs and your disbeliefs at the door. This is not a Bible study, this is not a sermon, and it is not about asking you to accept anyone else's truth. It is an invitation to investigate reality for yourself. I am Kim. In every episode, Joe and I will explore the text found in A Course in Miracles through 6 powerful lenses: science, philosophy, psychology, mysticism, direct experience, and everyday living. We'll ask difficult questions, we'll challenge assumptions, we'll laugh together, and we'll discover how these teachings can transform the way we see ourselves, our relationships, and the world around us. Whether you're new to A Course in Miracles or have studied it for decades, our purpose is simple: to uncover the timeless wisdom hidden beneath its words. We won't ask, "What should we believe?" We'll ask, "What can we discover?" Because awakening is not about collecting new ideas. It is about change in perception. It's about seeing clearly. It's about moving from fear to love, from separation to wholeness, from confusion to understanding. So take a deep breath, set aside everything you think you know, and join us for a special series in A Course in Miracles.
Imagine standing in a courtroom, like right before the gavel is about to drop.
Oh yeah, you can totally feel that tension.
Right. It's palpable. You have a judge looking down from the bench, a jury of your peers just intensely analyzing your every move, and all the evidence is just spread out on the table for everyone to see.
Yeah, you're just waiting for that final word.
Exactly. The verdict is about to be read, and there is this, it's comforting but also terrifying, this absolute clarity to the situation, innocent or guilty.
Black and white.
Yeah, who is to blame and who needs to pay the price? And if you think about it, we structure our entire lives, our societies, and even like our internal mental landscapes entirely around this exact model of justice.
Oh, for sure. It is the absolute bedrock of how we organize reality.
Right.
If someone does something wrong, there must be a consequence. There has to be an exchange.
Mm-hmm.
A debt incurred and a debt paid.
Transaction.
Exactly, a transaction. That transactional nature is so deeply embedded in human psychology because, well, it makes the world feel predictable.
But what if, and this is a huge what if that entire courtroom, the judge, the jury, the laws, the very concept of the crime itself, was just a complete hallucination?
That is a wild thought experiment.
Right. What if you were playing the role of the judge, the prosecutor, and the defendant all at once, just sitting in an empty room, totally exhausting yourself for absolutely no reason?
Wow.
Today, we are looking at a framework for reality that claims exactly that. We are looking at a text that takes a literal sledgehammer to the very foundation of how you evaluate the world around you, how you construct your own identity, and frankly, why you feel so incredibly drained at the end of every single day.
Yeah, we are analyzing Chapter 3 of a profoundly paradigm-shifting document. It's known as A Course in Miracles.
Such a fascinating text.
It really is. And specifically, we're focusing on a section titled The Innocent Perception. But we really need to establish the parameters of this source material right out of the gate because it is entirely unique.
Yeah, let's give the listener some context here.
So the text is actually written from the first-person perspective of Jesus.
Which is, that's a massive claim right there.
Oh, totally. But it actively, and I would say quite radically, reinterprets foundational Christian theology through a completely different psychological and spiritual lens.
Yeah, and that is a massive hurdle right there for anyone listening. A book claiming to be authored by Jesus, that immediately brings up a wall of preconceived notions.
Absolutely.
Regardless of whether you are deeply religious, an atheist, or like somewhere in between. So the mission for you, the listener, right now, is not to take this as some dogmatic theological lesson.
Right. You don't need to convert to anything today.
Exactly. The mission is to temporarily just suspend everything you think you know about religion, about spirituality, and even about your own mind. We are exploring this text as a radical deconstruction of perception.
And the goal here is to understand this text's central promise, which is basically a shortcut to a state of absolute mental clarity and peace by completely removing the information overload of your daily judgments.
And to achieve that mental clarity, the text starts by just aggressively dismantling the most widely accepted concept in Western religious thought, which is the necessity of sacrifice.
Yeah, this is where it really flips the script.
Mm-hmm.
Because the traditional narrative, the one that has shaped thousands of years of culture, art, law, all of it, is that the crucifixion was the ultimate required sacrifice.
Right.
The idea is that humanity's sins created a debt so massive that God demanded a violent, blood-soaked payment to balance the cosmic scales.
To pay off the debt.
Exactly. And that act of violent retribution is traditionally what established atonement or reconciliation.
But this text looks at that entire transactional model and basically says, no, absolutely not.
Well,
It argues that the crucifixion did not establish atonement at all. It claims the resurrection did. And it makes this uncompromising assertion that God does not demand sacrifice.
which is huge.
It's massive. It says God did not punish his son because he was good or to pay for anyone else's evil. According to this text, the very concept of sacrifice is just totally unknown to God.
Which naturally forces a massive psychological question. If God doesn't require sacrifice, where did we get the idea?
Right. Who made that up?
Exactly. And the text introduces this highly sophisticated explanation of psychological projection. It basically argues that the concept of an angry, wrathful God who demands violent retribution arises entirely from human fear.
And our belief in scarcity, I would imagine.
Yes, our deeply ingrained belief in scarcity. We feel vulnerable. We feel lack. We operate in a world where we constantly hurt each other, and so we just assume the creator of the universe must operate on that same level of punitive logic.
So we are essentially looking in a mirror, seeing all of our own cruelty, our guilt, our own demand for vengeance, and we are just projecting that monstrous reflection onto the sky and calling it God.
That is the exact mechanism. The text explicitly states that viewing the crucifixion as God permitting or encouraging suffering is an upside-down point of view.
Upside down.
Yeah, upside down. It argues that humans have taken their own evil past life, their own history of violence and vengeance, and assigned it to God. But God didn't create that past. He doesn't maintain it, and he is entirely devoid of the desire for retribution. The text actually directly refutes the interpretation of that famous biblical, quote, "Vengeance is mine, saith the Lord."
Oh, how does it handle that?
It calls it a profound misperception of a creator who only knows love.
I struggle with this a bit, to be honest, because that punitive model is just so deeply ingrained in us.
Oh, completely. It's everywhere.
The text uses this really striking analogy of a parent who beats a child and says, "This hurts me more than it hurts you."
Right.
It claims that the parent in that scenario is just feeling falsely exonerated for their own cruelty. So are we really supposed to believe that the vast majority of historical theology is just humanity projecting a history of toxic, abusive parenting onto the cosmos?
Well, the text would say it goes even deeper than just projecting abusive parenting. It's actually the ultimate defense mechanism for our own egos.
Okay, unpack that for me.
Think about it. If we can convince ourselves that God is wrathful, jealous, and demands violent sacrifice, well, it perfectly justifies our own wrath, jealousy, and violence,
Oh, I see.
right? If God persecutes his own son for the sake of justice, then our persecution of each other, our wars, our punitive justice systems, our interpersonal cruelty, it's suddenly all divinely sanctioned.
We created an angry God to justify our angry world.
Exactly that.
That completely flips how we read classic religious symbols. Like, take the Lamb of God. When you hear that phrase, the immediate visual is an animal on an altar, right?
Sacrifice, yeah.
A helpless creature stained with blood, about to be slaughtered to appease an angry deity.
And the text addresses that specific symbol directly. It states that anyone who represents the lamb as blood-stained has fundamentally misunderstood the metaphor.
Because the lamb isn't a sacrifice.
No. The lamb is not a symbol of sacrifice at all. It is a symbol of absolute, unadulterated innocence. And innocence, in the framework of this text, is actually incapable of sacrificing anything.
Because an innocent mind already has everything.
Precisely. If you are perfectly innocent and whole, you don't lack anything. And if you don't lack anything, you have nothing to barter with, and absolutely no need to strike a deal with reality.
You only sacrifice when you believe a transaction is required to gain something you think you're missing.
Right. The text pairs this with the famous imagery of the lion and the lamb lying down together.
See, I always read that as just a pleasant, poetic vision of an afterlife where animals don't eat each other.
Most people do.
But you're saying the text views it as a psychological blueprint.
It does. It is a profound statement about the nature of true power. We usually equate strength with the lion, right? The ability to destroy, conquer, dominate.
Yeah, brute force.
Exactly. And we view the lamb as weak because it is harmless. But the text argues that true strength is total innocence, because innocence is completely invulnerable.
Wait, so innocence is the ultimate defense?
Yes. The lion and the lamb lying together symbolizes that strength and innocence are not in conflict. They are naturally at peace. A pure mind knows that its harmlessness is its ultimate defense.
Just as light effortlessly abolishes darkness, the light doesn't strap on armor and go to war with the dark. It just turns on, and the darkness ceases to exist.
That's a great way to put it.
But this brings up a massive grinding friction point for me, and I'm sure for you listening right now. If God doesn't demand sacrifice, and if God doesn't punish, if the foundation of reality is this pure, harmless innocence, then why is the human experience just a nonstop parade of suffering, conflict, and pain?
The million-dollar question.
Right. Like, if reality is this flawless kingdom of light, why does my actual Tuesday morning feel like a chaotic struggle just to keep my head above water?
That is the central paradox the text has to resolve. And to answer why we suffer in a perfect universe, the text makes a really hard, uncompromising distinction between how things actually are and how we perceive them to be.
Okay.
It basically divides all of experience into two completely separate categories, knowledge and perception.
And we really need to define knowledge here because the text defines it in a way that is vastly different from how you or I would use the word at, say, a trivia night.
Oh, completely different.
For us, knowledge is reading a stack of books, memorizing data, figuring out how a combustion engine works. But the text strips all of that away. It says knowledge is absolute certainty, it is timeless, it is completely stable, and most importantly, it is not open to interpretation.
Yeah, our everyday definition of knowledge is actually just accumulated data within the realm of perception.
Okay, so it's not real knowledge.
Yeah, according to this source, true knowledge is unchangeable reality. It is the absolute truth of God. Perception, on the other hand, is the realm we actually live in. Perception involves space, it involves time, it involves doubt, and crucially, it requires interpretation.
Meaning, the very moment you have to interpret something, you are no longer in the realm of knowledge. You are guessing.
Exactly. Because perception implies interpretation, it fundamentally implies doubt. You have to evaluate the data, organize it, accept parts of it, reject other parts. You have to believe in more and less.
Right.
Knowledge does none of that. You don't have to evaluate a perfect truth, you just are one with it.
So, perception is kind of like walking through the world wearing different colored sunglasses.
That's a good analogy.
Sometimes you wake up wearing fear-tinted sunglasses, and every interaction feels like a threat, every email is an insult, and the world just looks scarce and terrifying.
We've all had those days.
Right. And then sometimes, maybe after a great cup of coffee or a good meditation session, you are wearing love-tinted sunglasses, and people seem kind, and the world feels expansive.
Yeah.
But knowledge isn't about finding the best pair of sunglasses. Knowledge is realizing you've had glasses glued to your face your whole life, ripping them off, and just standing in the raw light.
That analogy works really well, but we actually have to take it a step further.
Okay, hit me.
Taking the glasses off still implies that there is a you looking at an external light.
Ah, a subject and an object.
Exactly. The text suggests that in the state of true knowledge, that subject-object separation disappears entirely. You don't just see the truth. You recognize that you are part of it. However, while we are still wearing the glasses, while we are in the realm of perception, the text introduces the concept of miracles.
Right, and it completely strips the magic out of the word.
Yeah.
Because a miracle isn't the seas parting or water turning into wine. The text defines a miracle simply as right-minded seeing.
Yeah, a miracle is a correction of perception. When you swap your fear-tinted sunglasses for the truth-tinted ones, you are experiencing a miracle.
So it's an internal shift.
Totally. You are seeing a situation or another person without the distortion of your own projected guilt. But the text is very clear. Even a miracle is still perception. It is the right answer, but it is not ultimate knowledge.
Because if you had knowledge, you wouldn't need a correction in the first place.
Exactly.
Which leads to one of the most provocative and honestly difficult assertions in this entire deep dive. The text says that if you are asking questions, you clearly do not know the truth.
It really doesn't hold back.
It states that certainty requires no questions. And it says, the questioning mind perceives itself in time, and therefore looks for future answers.
It is a radical stance. It equates the very act of questioning with an admission of fundamental ignorance and separation from reality.
And I have to push back hard on this.
Go for it.
Because human curiosity is the engine of literally everything we consider good in our civilization. The scientific method, philosophical inquiry, investigative journalism, art, it's all entirely based on asking questions. We view the inquisitive mind as the highest human virtue.
We celebrate it, yeah.
So is this text honestly claiming that our curiosity, the very thing that cured diseases and put us on the moon, is actually a symptom of, like, brain damage, a sign of our cosmic separation?
Well, it doesn't call it brain damage, but it definitely views it as a symptom of an underlying illness, yes.
Really?
Yeah, the text explicitly states that inventiveness is wasted effort, even in its most ingenious form.
Wasted effort.
I know, it acknowledges that humans are incredibly clever, but it argues that we are using our vast intelligence to invent solutions to problems that only exist within our distorted perception.
Oh, man. So we are building incredibly sophisticated bridges over chasms that aren't actually there.
Precisely. If you possess true knowledge, there would be no chasm at all, and therefore absolutely no need for the ingenuity required to build the bridge.
Wow.
The text isn't saying that human achievements aren't impressive on their own terms. It's saying they are a massive expenditure of energy trying to make an illusion comfortable, rather than just waking up from the illusion entirely.
That makes me really reevaluate how we view profound spiritual experiences, too, because the text talks about visions.
Right, like near-death experiences.
Yeah, people have near-death experiences or deep meditative states where they see angels or feel this sudden rush of divine love. We tend to view those as the ultimate goal, the peak of spiritual achievement.
But the text says something different.
Yeah, it says that visions, no matter how holy or beautiful, do not last. And they don't last because they still involve perception. They are miracles, they are massive corrections, but they are still an experience of a subject perceiving an object. They are not the permanent, unshifting state of knowledge.
Because perception, by its very nature, shifts. Today you have a holy vision. Tomorrow you are screaming in traffic.
Oh, ain't that the truth?
Knowledge does not shift. It is absolute stability.
So if true reality is this state of perfect, unquestioning certainty and stability, and our current reality is this frantic, questioning, inventing, doubting mess, how did we get from there to here?
Yeah, what caused the drop?
Exactly. The text argues this state of constant shifting perception didn't just passively happen to us. It is driven by a very specific, fragmented part of our mind.
And this is where the text introduces its core psychological framework, which centers on a primordial event it calls the separation.
The separation.
Yeah, it describes a point where the mind, which was created by spirit to simply know its own perfection, made an impossible choice to divide itself.
It essentially chose to step outside of reality just to see what it would look like.
Exactly.
And the text says that consciousness was the first split introduced into the mind after that separation. Which is wild because in modern wellness culture, consciousness is the holy grail.
Oh, absolutely.
We want to be conscious consumers, we practice mindfulness, we want to elevate our consciousness. But the text treats consciousness as a downgrade. It says consciousness is the level of perception, and it reduced the mind to a mere perceiver rather than a creator.
Because consciousness implies awareness of something. It requires a gap between the observer and the observed. And the text correctly identifies this realm of consciousness as the exclusive domain of the ego.
We really need to spend some time defining the ego here because it's a word loaded with a lot of pop psychology baggage.
It really is.
We usually use it to mean arrogance, like, oh, that guy has a massive ego.
Right.
But the text defines the ego much more fundamentally. It says the ego is a wrong-minded attempt to perceive yourself as you wish to be rather than as you are.
It's not just pride. It is a fundamental crisis of identity. The text argues that you are a perfect, limitless creation of God, endowed with absolute knowledge. But for whatever reason, what it calls the tiny mad idea of wanting to be your own author, you rejected that perfection.
You decided you wanted to create yourself.
Yes. So you crafted a fake identity, a limited avatar that exists in time and space, and you built the ego to maintain and defend that avatar.
So the ego is essentially a rogue operating system.
I love that analogy.
We were designed to run on a flawless software of complete certainty and connection. But we deliberately downloaded a malware program called the ego because it promised us the illusion of independence.
Yeah.
And now this rogue OS is running our entire consciousness. It generates endless conflicting code, draining our battery, keeping us totally trapped in a loop of fear and separation.
It's a brilliant analogy, but with the terrifying twist. It's a rogue OS that has convinced you that you are the software.
Oh.
Right. It doesn't just run quietly in the background. It violently resists any attempt to uninstall it or update it. The text says a separated mind must be confused because it is literally out of accord with itself.
So we're basically fighting ourselves.
You have the buried memory of perfect knowledge and the loud, frantic shouting of the ego's perception running simultaneously. It makes the different aspects of your own mind strangers to each other.
And we are terrified of strangers.
Exactly. This is the root of the pervasive anxiety of the human condition. We are terrified of our own minds because we don't really know who is actually in control of the operating system. We feel the conflict, but we don't know how to resolve it.
And this is where the text contextualizes the historical figure of Jesus, who is supposedly narrating this text. He clarifies his role not as a conquering cosmic king, but as a systems debugger.
Right, a systems debugger.
He says, I was a man who remembered spirit and its knowledge. He didn't come to use ultimate knowledge to fight the ego, because fighting an illusion just makes it real to you.
It validates it.
Exactly. He came to correct the error from the bottom up by demonstrating the absolute power of the aligned mind over the illusory body.
He modeled the corrected operating system. He demonstrated that the physical world, the body, and even the death are powerless constructs of perception, and that the mind, when reconnected to its source, is unharmed by them. He actually states, I cannot choose for you, but I can help you make your own right choice.
So it's an invitation to manually override the ego?
Exactly. It's an invitation.
Which brings a fascinating new lens to a very famous Bible verse. The traditional quote is, many are called, but few are chosen. I always hated that quote. It sounds like God is running some exclusive VIP club, and no matter how hard you try, you might just not make the guest list.
It definitely sounds that way, yeah.
But the text drastically rephrases it. It says the proper translation is, all are called, but few choose to listen.
It completely democratizes salvation. The chosen ones are not arbitrarily selected by a capricious deity. They're simply the individuals who choose right sooner.
They decide to tune in.
Exactly. They're the ones who finally get exhausted enough by the rogue operating system that they decide to listen to the original code, the call to return to true knowledge.
And that word exhausted is exactly where I want to go next.
Yeah.
Because to maintain this illusion, to keep this rogue OS running and suppress the memory of who we really are, the ego relies on a specific tool. We use it every single day and almost every waking minute.
Yeah, we really do.
And that tool is judgment.
Judgment is the engine oil of the ego. The text is unambiguous about this. The choice to judge rather than to know is the direct and sole cause of our loss of peace.
This segment of the reading genuinely stopped me in my tracks because we think of judgment as a relatively benign, necessary function.
A survival tool, almost.
Right, like I judge that this route to work is faster. I judge that I prefer comedy movies over horror. But the text insists that judgment always involves rejection, and it makes this incredible claim that the strain of constant judgment is virtually intolerable and is the literal direct cause of our physical and mental fatigue.
Let's break down the actual mechanics of what happens in the mind when you judge. Like, why does it cause such profound fatigue?
Please do.
The text explains that perception rests entirely on evaluation. You cannot perceive a world without carving it up. You look at the raw data of reality, and your ego immediately starts slicing it into categories. This is good, this is bad, this is safe, this person is annoying, this person is useful, this is me, this is not me.
So we are constantly playing editor to the universe.
Yes. You are operating under the illusion that you have the authority to select reality. You are trying to be the author of what is true, and that is an infinitely heavy, impossible burden.
It sounds exhausting.
It is, and here's the hidden cost. When you judge something as bad or unworthy and reject it, whether it's a character flaw in someone else or a dark impulse within yourself, that rejected thing does not cease to exist.
The text says it remains in your mind because you perceived it.
Exactly. You didn't delete the file, you just encrypted it and shoved it into the deepest folder of your unconscious. And now you have to expend a massive amount of psychic energy 24 hours a day, keeping that folder locked.
And those rejected files leak.
Oh, they definitely leak.
The text says, we fear what we have judged and rejected, and that is why those rejected parts return to haunt us in nightmares.
Oh.
Or, as it chillingly puts it, in pleasant disguises in what seem to be your happier dreams.
It's wild.
We are spending all our energy defending the borders of our identity against our own judgments.
Think about the physical toll of that internal war. The text makes a stunning, absolute claim. It says, when you feel tired It is because you have judged yourself as capable of being tired.
That is just wow.
Right. It argues that in your true spiritual state, you are entirely incapable of fatigue. But you are very capable of wearying yourself by the crushing strain of constantly evaluating a world you didn't even create.
Okay, let's ground this in a totally mundane Tuesday. When I hit that brutal 3 p.m. slump at work, my immediate thought is, oh, I need more caffeine, or I didn't sleep enough.
Sure, biological reasons.
Right. But according to this framework, the biological explanation is secondary. The text is arguing that I am exhausted because since my alarm went off, I have evaluated the weather, judged the tone of 3 different emails, silently criticized a coworker's presentation, felt insecure about my own performance, and judged the lunch I ate as unhealthy.
That's a lot of judging.
It is. I have spent 8 hours carrying the psychological weight of playing God, trying to organize a reality that I actually have no control over.
That is precisely what the text is arguing. The fatigue is the symptom of the authority problem. The text states bluntly, you do not need judgment to organize your life, and you certainly do not need it to organize yourself.
But practically speaking, how does one function in human society without evaluating? I mean, if I don't judge the speed of a car, I get run over crossing the street. If I don't judge a social situation, I might say something horribly inappropriate.
Well, the text is making a really subtle distinction here between functional navigation and psychological condemnation.
Okay.
It is not telling you to walk blindly into traffic. It is talking about the judgment of worth and reality. Here's a piercing example.
Yeah.
When you laugh at someone, it is because you have judged him as unworthy. When you laugh at yourself, you must laugh at others, if only because you cannot tolerate the idea of being more unworthy than they are.
Ouch.
Yeah. It is this constant comparative analyzing of human value that is disheartening and drains your life force.
It's the exhaustion of constantly measuring your ego against everyone else's. So what is the antidote? How do we put down the gavel?
The text says that you have no idea of the tremendous release and deep, unshakable peace that comes from meeting yourself and your brothers totally without judgment. It states that in the presence of knowledge, all judgment is automatically suspended.
Because if you truly knew, like, not just intellectually believe, but knew with absolute certainty that you and everyone else were perfectly innocent and vulnerable creations of God, there would be nothing left to evaluate, right? The work is done. You don't have to decide if a colleague is worthy of your respect. You already know their true nature is perfect, regardless of whatever annoying ego program they are currently running.
Exactly.
But we don't do that. We fiercely, violently defend our right to judge. And why? Like, why would we consciously choose crippling fatigue over peace?
Well, we cling to judgment because giving it up means giving up the ultimate delusion. It means surrendering the one thing the ego was built to protect. And that brings us to the very core of the text's philosophy, what it calls the root of all evil.
The authority problem.
Yes, the authority problem is fundamentally a question of authorship. It is the deep-seated, terrifying delusion that you usurped the power of God and created yourself.
The text leans very heavily on the distinction between making and creating. It says that making comes entirely from a sense of lack or need. You make a sandwich because you lack food. You make a house because you lack shelter. Creating, however, as God does it, comes from a place of perfect wholeness and abundance. God doesn't create because he is lonely or bored. He creates as an extension of his own perfection.
Exactly. So when you fell into the illusion that you authored yourself, you didn't create yourself. You made yourself.
You bubbled it together.
Yeah. You crafted a self-image out of a perceived lack. You felt separated and terrified, so you made an ego, an avatar, to navigate that scary, separated world.
And this framework completely reinterprets the most famous origin story in Western culture, the Garden of Eden.
Oh, this part is fascinating.
It really is. The text says that eating from the tree of knowledge of good and evil wasn't about humans suddenly gaining high-level intelligence or moral reasoning. It is a purely symbolic expression for the attempt to usurp the ability to self-create.
Yeah.
It's humanity looking at the creator and saying, I reject your authorship. I want to be my own creator.
And that act of rebellion, that insistence on self-authorship, is the true meaning of the devil.
Wait, really?
Yes. The text is incredibly clear on this point, mostly to dispel centuries of superstition. The devil is not a literal, physical monster with a pitchfork tossing souls into a lake of fire.
Good to know.
Right. The devil is a belief. It is a powerful, active, destructive thought system that denies God's fatherhood and violently insist that you are an image of your own making.
When you frame it like that, it casts a terrifying light on modern culture. Think about the world we live in right now. We
Yeah.
absolutely worship the concept of the self-made individual.
Oh, it's the highest goal.
It is the highest compliment you can give someone. We spend our entire lives building personal brands on LinkedIn, curating our visual identities on Instagram, crafting our resumes. Even in therapy, the goal is often to find ourselves or reinvent ourselves.
Yeah, constant reinvention.
So is this text essentially saying that our entire culture of self-improvement, self-creation, and personal branding is actually a fearful, violent denial of our true origins?
The text would definitely say that you are fiercely defending a sandcastle against a rising tide and calling that defense your identity. It points out the inherent absurdity of the self-image. It argues that the very idea that you can change your image implies that there is nothing stable or real to know about yourself. If you are constantly inventing and reinventing who you are based on trends, feedback, or trauma, it is absolute proof that you have no idea what you actually are.
You're just improvising.
Exactly. You are lost in an inescapable impasse of your own making.
It has this line, ingenuity is totally divorced from knowledge. Ingenious thinking is not the truth that shall set you free.
That's a powerful quote.
We pride ourselves on being so clever, on figuring out complex psychological frameworks to manage our anxiety or optimize our productivity. But the text says it's a completely wasted effort because we are applying genius-level intellect to solve a problem, our separation from God that doesn't actually exist in reality.
Right.
The only real solution is not to build a better ego, but to return to our true foundation, to humbly admit we did not create ourselves.
But that admission is terrifying, and the text deeply acknowledges this psychological resistance. It says that as you approach the beginning, as you get closer to acknowledging God's authorship and giving up your self-made identity, you will feel the fear of the destruction of your thought system, and you will feel it as acutely as the fear of death itself.
Because to the ego, it is death.
Completely.
If you accept that God created you perfect, the ego is immediately out of a job. Its entire reason for existing vanishes. So let's try to pull all of these massive abstract concepts down to the ground.
Good idea.
We have this exhausting structure. We project a punishing God. We choose the shifting sands of perception over the stability of knowledge. We run a rogue ego operating system. We judge constantly to keep it running, and we are terrified to let our self-made identities die.
It's a lot.
It's a heavy load. So if all of this is an illusion, how do we actually hit the reset button? The text offers a very specific mechanism for this return to reality, but it requires redefining two very familiar religious practices, prayer and forgiveness.
It does. And it strips both of those concepts of their traditional transactional meanings. Let's look at prayer first, because the text flips our normal understanding completely upside down.
Right.
Usually, prayer operates like a cosmic shopping list.
Right. Dear God, please help me get this promotion, or please heal my sick dog. Please let it not rain on my wedding day.
Yeah, exactly. But the text argues that as long as you are trapped in the realm of perception, prayer has a place. But the only meaningful prayer is for forgiveness.
The only one?
The only one. Why? Because asking for specific things in the physical world implies a deep-seated belief in lack. If you are asking God for a job, you are affirming to the universe and to your own mind that you are lacking, that you are separated from abundance, and that God needs to intervene to fix a mistake in reality.
Oh, wow. It's essentially praying to the ego's belief in scarcity.
Yes.
So if the only valid prayer is for forgiveness, we have to define what this text means by forgiveness. Because if God doesn't punish and God doesn't demand sacrifice, then there are no sins for God to forgive in the traditional sense. So what are we even asking for?
Forgiveness, in this framework, is not about a superior pardoning an inferior for a real crime. Forgiveness is simply the healing of the perception of separation. The prayer for forgiveness is nothing more than a request for help to recognize what you already have.
Just to recognize it.
Right. It is asking the Holy Spirit, or the corrected operating system, to remove the blocks to your awareness of love's presence.
Recognize what you already have. That is such a profound shift. It implies that we are already sitting on the ultimate treasure, but we have our eyes squeezed tightly shut, holding out a tin cup and begging the universe for a single coin.
Exactly that. You are a billionaire begging for pennies because you forgot about your bank account.
I love that.
And the text notes that once you finally open your eyes and reach absolute knowledge, prayer itself actually becomes meaningless. It is replaced by what the text calls communion.
Because you don't ask for things from someone you are in perfect communion with.
Right. You simply share in their reality.
The text also does a fascinating reread of the classic Genesis line, God created man in his own image.
Yeah, it tackles that too.
It argues that the word image is misleading because it implies a physical form. It says it should be understood as thought. God created spirit in his own thought. We are literally thoughts in the mind of God.
And because we are God's thoughts, we share in his miraculous power completely. This completely shatters the worldly, ego-driven mindset of scarcity economics.
Not so.
Well, in the physical world, if I have a pie and I give you a slice, I have less pie. The world believes that if one person has everything, there is nothing left for anyone else. It's a zero-sum game.
But the text states that in God's miracles, each mind has the power completely. It says God's miracles are as total as his thoughts because they are his thoughts.
Right.
It is an economy of infinite, non-diminishing abundance. Having everything doesn't mean hoarding physical resources. It means recognizing your innate spiritual wholeness.
Which is why the text corrects another famous biblical injunction. Instead of the passive seek ye first the kingdom of heaven, which implies you have to go wandering around looking for it, it says it should be will ye first the kingdom of heaven.
Will ye first, meaning use your will, your internal decision-making power to align with the reality that is already inside you, rather than endlessly searching for it in external circumstances.
You don't have to seek your inheritance, you just have to accept it.
Okay, this is where I really need to introduce a massive practical friction point.
Bring it on.
It's the question that always arises when you encounter non-dualistic or highly abstract spiritual texts. If an innocent mind has everything and stops asking for things because it recognizes it lacks nothing, how does that actually translate to living in the physical world?
The real-world application.
Right. Does the listener just stop striving for goals entirely? Do I quit my job, sit on my couch, stare at the wall, and just commune? How do we reconcile the claim of perfect spiritual wholeness with a physical world that demands continuous action just to survive? We have bills. We have to pay rent.
It is the most important practical question to ask, and the text provides a very nuanced answer. It asserts boldly that knowledge does not lead to doing. Knowledge does not lead to action in the physical world. Knowledge is the result of revelation and induces only thought. Action, doing, striving, building, all of that belongs exclusively to the realm of perception and time.
So having profound spiritual knowledge doesn't mean you automatically know how to fix a leaky faucet or balance a spreadsheet.
Right. It doesn't give you magic physical skills. But what knowledge does do is stabilize the mind. It provides the unshakable strength and certainty of your true identity. And when your mind is stabilized by that certainty, you can then navigate the world of perception, the world of jobs, rent, and relationships, with what the text calls right perception or miracle-mindedness. You still act, you still do things in the world, but the source of your action completely changes. You do them without fear, without judgment, and without the desperate, exhausting need to extract your self-worth from the outcomes of those actions.
You act from a place of fullness rather than a place of lack. You are not building a career to prove to your parents or society that you have value. You are just participating in the world playfully, harmlessly, because you already know your value is absolute.
Exactly. When you drop the burden of self-authorship, you become a healing presence in the world of perception, rather than just another frightened ego trying to dominate it.
This has been a monumental journey today. We have covered an immense amount of philosophical ground, so let's try to synthesize this for the listener.
Have to do it.
We started by being asked to discard the deeply ingrained concept of a punishing, retributive God. We explored how the crucifixion was not a divine demand for a blood sacrifice, but rather that the resurrection was the ultimate demonstration that pure innocence cannot be destroyed by the ego's violence.
We delineated the crucial fundamental difference between knowledge, which is absolute, unwavering certainty, and communion with God in perception, which is the fragmented realm of time, doubt, shifting guesses, and constant interpretation.
We identified the ego not just as pride, but as the questioning, terrified aspect of the split mind, running like a rogue operating system to maintain a fake, self-made identity.
We recognize that this ego is a wildly exhausting machine, and it runs entirely on the fuel of constant nonstop judgment. We learned that the physical and mental fatigue we feel every day is the direct result of trying to play God and evaluate a reality we didn't create.
We unpacked the authority problem, the terrifying delusion that we authored ourselves rather than accepting our creation by God. And finally, we reframed forgiveness, not as pardoning a real sin, but simply asking for help to remember that we and everyone else already have everything.
It is a complete systemic inversion of how the world thinks.
Yeah.
It asks you to look at everything upside down to finally see it right side up.
It really is. And for you listening, I want to bring this lofty theology right down to the immediate practical application for your life today. The text promises deep, profound, unshakable peace. But you have to test the mechanics of it yourself.
Yeah, put it into practice.
Try to catch yourself in the act of judgment today. When you are sitting in traffic or enduring a boring meeting or doom scrolling through your phone, notice the exact moment your mind starts evaluating, rejecting, and categorizing people and situations. Notice the tightness in your chest.
The physical feeling of it.
Notice the physical toll it takes on your energy. See if you can actually feel the fatigue of playing the author of reality. Just observing that exhaustion without judging yourself for doing it is the first step to laying the heavy gavel down.
Suspending judgment, even for a single quiet moment, opens the door to right perception. It allows the miracle to enter.
Exactly. And I want to leave you with one final mind-bending extrapolation of everything we've discussed today. We touched on it briefly, but it's worth sitting with. The text claims that true knowledge induces only thought, not action. It says that doing is tied entirely to perception, to time, and to a fundamental sense of lack.
Knowing doesn't require doing.
Knowing doesn't require doing. So if that is true, think about the implications for the human story. What if humanity's entire history of relentless progress, every towering skyscraper we've built, every brutal war we've fought over borders, every complex technology we've invented to optimize our lives, what if all of that is not a triumph of the human spirit?
Oh, that's heavy.
What if it is merely a restless, feverish symptom of our cosmic amnesia? Are we just desperately, exhaustingly trying to build out of stone and steal the perfect kingdom that we forgot we already have within us?
It forces you to look at the skyline of every major city and every achievement on your own resume in a completely different light.
Thank you for listening. If today's conversation resonated with you, please take a moment to like this episode, subscribe to the channel, and share it with someone who may benefit from these reflections on A Course in Miracles and the deeper questions of life. Your support allows us to continue creating conversations that explore consciousness, reality, love, forgiveness, and what it truly means to awaken. I'm Kim Kaur, and it is my privilege to introduce Jo Bandra. Jo is an author, philosopher, speaker, healthcare technology pioneer, and a lifelong explorer of humanity's greatest questions. For more than 3 decades, he has worked at the intersection of science and medicine while pursuing an equally passionate exploration of A Course in Miracles. His first book, Finding Neve, is a transformative journey into self-discovery and the search for lasting happiness. His second book, Body, Mind, and Machine, shares his remarkable career in healthcare technology and the evolution of a profession dedicated to improving human lives. His upcoming work, The Nature of Reality, brings together science, philosophy, psychology, mysticism, and direct experience to explore one of humanity's oldest questions. What is reality really? Through every conversation, Jo invites us to question our assumptions, look beyond appearances, and discover a deeper understanding of ourselves, each other, and the extraordinary universe we share. Thank you for being part of this journey. Until next time, keep questioning, keep exploring, and above all, keep awakening.
Life often feels like an endless list of tasks, constant noise and distractions, pulling us in every direction. We're all searching for happiness, but what if we've been looking in the wrong places all along?
This was Nevea's journey. Lost in the noise, she felt cut off from the peace and happiness she longed for. Until she met Jo Bandra, an unconventional, insightful philosopher with a different perspective. Jay, as he is simply known, didn't hand her a map. He gave her something far more valuable, a compass, a way to turn inward, navigate her own thoughts, and uncover the clarity hidden beneath the chaos.
Readers around the world have been touched and inspired by Finding Nevea.
Your journey to inner peace begins now. Get your copy of Finding Nevea, available on Amazon and at findingnevea.org, or listen to the audiobook on Audible.